Tappei has just released a new chapter, Arc 7 Chapter 9, and this will be a summary of it. If you haven't already, I highly recommend you check out Arc 7 Chapter 8, of which I have a summary on my channel. Anyways, let's get started. Subaru felt a burning pain, like peeling off a scab and exposing the resulting wound to the cold air. It hurt. Subaru gasped. He couldn't see anything. His hands and legs were bound. His eyes were blindfolded. All of a sudden, Subaru's mouth was filled with a shoe. Someone was shouting at Subaru to remind him of his position. Despite being covered in spit, all Subaru could feel was the pain in his chest, as if his lung was punctured. Subaru thinks back to his last moments, being shot by the young girl and then dying by Rem's side. In Subaru's confusion, Todd opted to take off Subaru's blindfold. As we can see, Subaru is back to being a prisoner of war, back to day one at being at the Imperial camp. The conversation proceeded as normal, Todd stating he can't unbind Subaru, but the least he could do is remove the blindfold. And Jamal is of course being aggressive. Subaru remembers this exact scene with the campfire and the racks of armor and swords. Subaru didn't believe that after being shot by an arrow, they would have bound Subaru up by his hands and legs after treatment, which only means one thing: Subaru died. Subaru confirmed this by looking at the green forest. It was still there, no longer covered in flames. Subaru had returned by death. Subaru felt pain. He had died in front of Rem. He tried to think about how Rem must have felt. She had no memories, and the one person who knew her was just killed off. She was alone. Again, Todd welcomed Subaru with a sweet smile. Subaru liked Todd due to his nice approach, however Todd pushed for the burning of the forest of Budheim. Subaru thought about the mentality of the Valakian people. Maybe it was common to have a mindset to just burn down the forest at the first appearance of a witch beast. Subaru couldn't really relate to it, neither would the people of Lagunica. The only person that would maybe have a tiny bit of relationship or understanding is someone like Roswell, who tends to be pretty rational when it comes to solving things. Subaru blamed himself for the lives lost in the burning incident. It was his mistake that caused it, and despite Subaru returning by death, he will not forget the sins he had caused. Subaru decided to not make that mistake again. Death is a heavy cost, and therefore it is best to avoid letting people die, and therefore it was fortunate he could meet Todd and Jamal for the first time again. He would build a good relationship with Todd and even Jamal so he could have a peaceful talk with the Sudrakian people and then come to a peaceful resolution. Todd asked if Subaru was okay since he was just called a prisoner of war. Subaru again responded saying he was confused and lost for words. Subaru realized he needed to hide some information so he could manipulate Todd's extreme behavior, and at the same time he would befriend Todd again. Subaru thanked Todd if he was the person that saved Subaru from the river. However, Todd cut him off, asking Subaru why he was looking at him like that. Todd thrust 5 fingers in front of Subaru's face and demanded to know the look that Subaru gave him. At the same time, a knife was stabbed into Subaru's right shoulder. Todd had stabbed Subaru. Subaru screamed out in pain and he wanted to somehow treat the wound, but he couldn't due to being bound up. Hearing the shout, Jamal rushed in and shouted at Todd. Jamal told Todd that this wasn't what they had planned. Todd apparently told Jamal to not mess with Subaru since he had a knife of a noble. And now here Todd was stabbing Subaru in the shoulder. Todd stated that that was the case before he realized who Subaru was. Jamal was confused. Todd steps on Subaru's body and declared it. Subaru was an enemy, so he would strike first. Todd asked if Subaru was good with pain as he stepped on Subaru, driving the knife deeper into the wound. Since Subaru was blinded with pain, he couldn't answer Todd, and Todd believed that this silence was affirmation that Subaru was an enemy. Todd removed his foot from Subaru, and Jamal was stating that Todd was doing too much, and Todd stated that he was doing what needs to be done. And Subaru can't really believe what he's hearing. Jamal is defending him. Jamal asked why Todd was doing this, and Todd stated that the first thing he noticed when he took off Subaru's blindfold was the fact that Subaru was trying to manipulate him. Todd states that he was offering a helping hand, and Subaru's first reaction was to take advantage of that, so that must mean that Subaru is a bad person. Reading this, of course, by the way, just as an editor's note, Todd is actually correct because Subaru did have the intention to manipulate Todd. Anyways, we see that Todd stabbed Subaru in the right shoulder due to Subaru's left fingers being broken, so now Subaru's arms were out of commission. Todd talks about the possibility of Subaru being awake and listening to Todd's conversations when they took Subaru back to the camp after rescuing him from the river, as if Subaru was waiting for a chance to attack. Anyways, Subaru is suspicious. Listening to Todd's explanation, Jamal's anger subsided. Subaru could see that Todd was good with words and was able to convince people to understand his point of view. This is something that Subaru experienced before he returned by death. Todd realized that the two girls were captured couldn't really give them information, so the only person that had information was Subaru, and since Jamal was still mad due to Rem incapacitating two of his men, Todd offered Jamal the chance to beat up Subaru to extract information. As Jamal approached Subaru, Subaru mentioned the Sudrak people. This caused Jamal and Todd to freeze. Todd laughed and stated to not harm Subaru since he has information, but they could beat him up later if required. Todd was smiling at Subaru. This was the same smile that he showed Subaru when Todd healed his fingers or when he joined them for lunch. Todd asked for more information, and Subaru said he was Sudrakian. Todd said that Subaru doesn't have the darker skin tone of the Sudrakian people, but he had the black hair which matches. Subaru was willing to sell out the Sudrakian people to save his life. He was using the Sin archbishops as a role model for this. Todd sees that Subaru's desperation is not a lie. Jamal doesn't believe Subaru, but Todd says to keep Subaru in mind that Subaru is a despicable person, so give him the benefit of the doubt. Todd and Jamal took Subaru away. Rem was caged and was shouting at them, asking what they were doing with Subaru. Rem, of course, was confused by Subaru's appearance. He looked horrible. His stab wound was treated with first aid, but his fingers couldn't be fixed. Subaru still had a few shackles on him, restricting movement. Subaru looked like a slave. Subaru thought about his progress with Rem. Everything had reset, and he couldn't tell Rem about his scent. Subaru is asked about his relationship to Rem and Lewis, and Subaru just states that they are props. He has to act selfish so they aren't used as hostages. Subaru was going to become a villain, sell out the Sudrakian people, and then be rewarded with his life. Subaru had to think of a way to escape with Rem. He had no intention of befriending Todd anymore. They could not be controlled, even if they were allies, so they were dangerous. The group led by Subaru entered the forest. Subaru was of course bluffing his way through since he didn't know where the Sudrakian people were. Subaru knows that Rem's cage is unlocked from the outside, but getting Rem to follow him is another matter due to his increased witch scent. Furthermore, you need Lewis to come, or else Rem would most likely not follow Subaru. Subaru does get asked how long the journey would take to the Sudrakian village, and he states 2 to 3 hours, and he's met with happiness since it was supposed to be a mission that would take several years, but Subaru can get them there in like a few hours. The platoon had around 20 people. It wasn't that many people, and Todd needed Subaru around so he could verify the information. Plus, if this was a trap and they all died, then the people of the camp would know that Subaru wasn't to be trusted, and they all started shouting, "Long live Wallachia." Todd and Jamal spoke. Jamal's still mad and stated that they should give Rem and Lewis to a general, but Todd told Jamal to cool it down, or else when they reached the Sudrakian village, Subaru could get the people to kill them. So they needed to have a balance where they help each other. Either way, Subaru came to the conclusion he would harm Jamal and Todd. However, there was something wrong. There was a witch beast. The Imperial guards attacked the witch beast, but Subaru knew this was a grave mistake. Subaru was a pro at manipulating witch beasts. They would aggro Subaru straight away, but the second someone else would attack them, the witch beast would target them instead. And since they were all wearing the same uniform, it would attack them all and leave Subaru alone. This is why Subaru walked into the forest. The guards didn't know about the snake, and they were caught off guard. Subaru jokes that he should contest the title of Beastmaster with melee, since he's good at controlling witch beasts to some extent. Subaru was using this chance to run away, but felt fear in the back of his neck, and he instinctively ducked, dodging an axe swing. Todd's eye had an obsession to it, different from the archbishops or Reed Astria or the Beasts. Subaru had to run or he would be killed. Subaru was hit in the back, but he kept running. However, soon Subaru collapsed. Blinded with pain, he had no more stamina. He wondered if death was upon him and asked if he was dead, but he heard a response. Of course not. Subaru wondered if he was captured by Todd, but he realized he was caught in the trap. One built by Rem, and he had a companion. Subaru heard a voice. "I never thought I'll see you again, Natsuki Subaru." It was the masked man, and he was also caught in the trap. And the chapter ends there. Anyways, my thoughts on the chapter is really interesting. Todd, as we predicted, was suspicious, and he does definitely have some screws loose. Also, near the end of the chapter, Subaru feels fear at the back of his neck, and he dodges axe swing. So is that the gluttony authority? Or is it a different ability that's manifesting itself? So it's just something to think about. But it's a good chapter, and we'll see what happens. And the masked man was caught in the trap, so we'll see where this goes. Anyways, see you guys next time, and thank you to my channel members: Lewis Stewart, Zayalid, Alternative Zenya 15, Miss Mew Mew, Is Your Boy 69, Nutrags, OMW, Blue Portal, Bruh Moment, and Worst Ness.